So next, it is my honor to introduce Dr. Julie Wei as the 2022 Young Physician Section and Section for Resident and Fellow keynote speaker. I met Dr. Julie Wei when I was a fourth-year resident, and I would still remember the day we met. I was mesmerized by her with her compassion for medicine, her love for it. And I remember at the time, I wanted to just be like her because she was interviewing for the chief of pediatric ENT at the hospital I was a resident at. I think looking over at Dr. Wei's career, she has done it all. She has amazing research career, clinical practice, and leadership role. But I think I'm looking forward to have her come up and talk to us about on the outside, when you have it all, what does it really mean? So thank you. Welcome, Dr. Wei.
Thank you. Thank you for that gracious introduction. I remember that day very well. Carol, we were in the cafeteria. You were heavily pregnant, and yet with a smile and working hard. And I think even then, it's got to be over a decade, about a decade or more, and look how far you've come. So I want to thank Dr. Delaney, the Academy, and both of your sections for the honor of addressing you today. First of all, this is an audience response talk. So there's a QR code. I want to make sure all of you go ahead and do that, because it's very important to me that you yourselves, and along with me, understand, where you are and some of the things that we're going to talk about. Okay, so I'll just give you another moment to be sure to scan that QR code. I have thought about this moment every day since the day I accepted this invitation. So I think it's been over 3 months. I thought about how this moment and the next 30 minutes, what is the most authentic, impactful message I could share with you? And I decided that I'm going to share with you all that I've experienced since starting residency in 1996. But see, what I could offer you today is one I decided where I'm going to pretend the younger version of me is sitting out there in the audience with you. And this way, hopefully, you'll understand a little bit about my journey, and it provides a reflection for you as you develop your life and career. So the topic we'll touch on is work-life integration, well-being, and resilience. The only disclosure I have is I have a small LLC. I founded in 2013, which was always focused on pediatric health. And as of this month, I've just launched my physician coaching business. So let's start by understanding what you, the Young Physician Section and Section Resident Fellow, how do you feel? If you can go ahead and just answer, do you feel like you're surviving, are you thriving, or you're not sure? Okay, we'll let the votes keep coming in. We have over 100 votes already. Okay, thank you, because if over half of you were not surviving, I was gonna exit gracefully. There's no need for this talk. But all joking aside, I know why I'm here, right? So thank you for answering that. Let me tell you that this talk is not about yoga and meditation or what you're not doing and that you're the problem anytime the topic of burnout comes up. And listen, I have nothing against yoga and meditation. In fact, I wish I was better at both. But you see, self-care is only one component of well-being out of 5 or 6. It's the only component that you have full control over. It's the single one that you can't delegate, and that's why it's important. But this is not enough, so that's why I won't be talking about that. I'm 52 years old. It's in the last several years that this has surfaced for me. Who am I and what am I worth, right? So as I reflect and think about what are the core values in my life, and I mean professional and also personal, I came to the realization that I, and many physicians, possibly even you early in your career, I think we have internalized and adopted a false narrative about who we are and what we're worth. Okay, and that's not only wrong, but it's been built on shame, guilt, over-exaggerated, unnecessary self-flagellation, built on this addiction to achieve, to prove ourselves to other people who are measuring what our worth is, right? We were raised where, you know what, we're gonna sacrifice everything in the name of service to our patients and our noble profession. You see, it's so easy to believe, right? This is our truth. Our worth is defined by every metric out there. You know why? Because we've been measured, after all, that way. That's how you got into medical school, into residency, fellowship. Our dream career of being otolaryngologists. That's right, every one of you and me at the academy. This is our dream career, so how come 50 challenges and where it's failing? It's forced us, all of you, you're going to be practicing under ever increasing, unrelenting pressure to produce. And our professional worth is now, even though it should be measured as a reflection of the incredible things we do, it's not. It's first and foremost measured by what's called the oversimplistic, right, relative value units. You know, RVU, where a tonsillectomy is, 3.2, something like that, right? So the younger Julie Wei, I'm shaped by, we all have to own our story. I'm shaped by the traumatic loss of my mom to breast cancer at age 9, immigrating from Taiwan to the United States, not knowing the language, being bullied. But you know what? I achieved despite all barriers. And I understand now, after all these years, 25 years since I started residency, the only control I had and ever have is how hard I work, right? So my commitment was to be the best pediatric otolaryngologist, the most compassionate, holistic physician. I want to achieve all the academic, aims as a faculty. I mean, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I remember, yes, triple aim, I got that. Then it turned into quadruple aim. I got that too. Last month I read it's now the quintuple aim. Sure, bring more aims, I can do it. But you know what I realized? What was never acknowledged, professionally, personally, for me, was my own humanity. I'm made of flesh and blood, right? The other thing we don't acknowledge is our physical, mental health, the many risks that impact us by doing more and more with no end in sight. And there's also a very specific biological gender differences in that. So I will never forget, right? I love playing tennis. I was all proud 4 years ago. I went from not exercising enough to weekend warrior tennis. I never warmed up and stretched. I got 120 minutes. Every minute has to be the highest cardio. I don't know about you guys, right? This is how a surgeon shows up. I started having problems, I'm getting injections, and then in April 2021, I'm in the middle of a sinus case for allergic fungal sinusitis, and I have frozen shoulder. I didn't know it, I just know it hurt. I couldn't walk, I was crying in the OR, so had to call for help to come finish the case. After that, of course, I had the workup, I had decompression surgery in May, right? Awesome ortho surgeon, most reputable in town, says, you know what, take 7 days off of work. You actually could go back in 5. Don't operate for 21, and then you're good. I never saw what was coming. It was this adhesive capsulitis where I lost range of motion. But hey, we're coming out of the pandemic. I got to work. We've had people laid off because of financial pressures, et cetera. I kept showing up, but I didn't take the time to really do what I needed to. And then by October of 2021, I developed a numbness, tingling. It's called cervical radiculopathy. That really, I was still in denial then, and finally just hit a point where I called the timeout. I needed out. Okay, so I went on medical disability December, January, and February. And it was during that time, hours of therapy to avoid the triple titanium plate that somebody said we can easily put that in and you'll be all set. And by the way, that hardware was not designed for women. So I got to avoid surgery. But you know, it was that, and I share about it because you see, every one of you are at risk. Okay, so the cervical radiculopathy is something that we're now beginning to understand that can impact surgeons of all different subspecialties. So here's the thing. Let me ask you guys another question as I make the shift. Have you experienced traumatic stress from personal event, professional event, both? It's a never, once or twice, or multiple times during training and after. Thank you. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to share that. So while I'm happy, 8% says never, 38% once or twice, I have to tell you the truth. It's only a matter of time. If you're practicing in the field that we're in, anybody, if you're a physician, those in the 8% and 36% will also join the 56%, right? You know, I put on here the top 6 or 7 really the most impactful negative events I've experienced. They're by no means comprehensive. But you see, as I was experiencing them through my 19-year career, there was never any time or space, nor was I taught formally in residency, fellowship, or after. How do we as humans process trauma in real time? Okay. And so what I've learned now, I wish I learned when I sat out there like you 19 years ago, or 20 or 25 when I started residency, is that, oh my goodness, I, in order to survive, had to dissociate my mind from my body. Do you know what I'm talking about? I need to suppress my visceral feelings, my physical pain, anything that I've ever experienced, because that's the only way I can get up tomorrow and go do it again and do the immense work that is asked of me day in and day out. And by suppressing and ignoring my body, it turns out the body keeps score, and it was screaming at me. And you know how it did it? I would have chest pain. I drove myself 4 a.m. to the ER. What a terrible idea that was, right? I've had hives, angioedema, I carry an EpiPen, and no number of doctors I've gone to, the amount of workup, you know what everyone tells me? You're fine. I felt like I'm crazy. No one's listening to me. They can't diagnose me, and I understand now. My body is trying to say, woman, you're not listening, so let's just give you something that'll completely make you call a timeout. So 2 decades of neglect for the sake of being a great doctor and surgeon and leader. So the body keeps score, and now there's research and data that validates my experience. So please raise your hand. This is not an audience response question. Raise your hand if you use a checklist in your daily work in order to optimize patient safety. Raise them high. Oh, great, I see a lot of them. Thank you. So as a surgeon, we know this concept, right? Written by Dr. Atul Gawande, the Checklist Manifesto, right? Most hospital systems have adopted, right, this aviation industry, the model of using a checklist because we need to mitigate the up to 250,000 deaths in the US every year due to medical error. Right? And all of us we do the timeout, don't we, before we make incision? But I ask you, what about our safety? Where is the physician safety checklist? So for me, physician well-being is not just about, look, a wellness program, the HR wellness program that so many companies and industries now declare it. Right? You know why? Because it's a competitive edge. It's not just a perk. This is what they use to say we want to up our recruitment of talent, retention. And we know this is scientifically proven and evidence-based, that if your employees are well and you're engaged, guess what it does? Your productivity goes up. For us, we know it translates into better patient care outcomes, quality, safety, et cetera. So we, the physicians, however, this has taken me, quite a bit of reflection to say this. We endure risk and needs far beyond the typical employee or any of our non-clinical colleagues, even if they work in the health system. I will tell you, I throw this up here, and over the last 25 years, the only thing I haven't experienced is separation, divorce, and addiction. Everything else, I have had the privilege of experiencing that. Okay, so the personal and psychological risks affect every one of us just simply because we're human. The professional risks are unique to physicians, and that's why I was inspired to hear about now the entrepreneurship and creation of banking for physicians, right? So this is my observation. I'm humbly going to tell you this. Anybody who doesn't do what we do will never understand us. And yet many of them will be your employers creating your reality and how you experience your career and your life. Now, everyone knows the pandemic exacerbated burnout for everyone, right? Across industries, demographics, subpopulations, gender, geography. It has impacted humans globally. So I consider myself the real positive human. During the pandemic, I wrote 44 daily positive emails and sent them to my division and everyone in the hospital. But I gotta tell you something, right? Physician burnout was already there before the pandemic. So I created this imagery and asked myself honestly, I put all the words that describe my emotions since the pandemic started on the left side. And then on the right side, I put the positive intents and the typical motivational sentiments, and they're real. And I put them there, and they just for once seem really inadequate against what's really happened to us. This slide has imagery that, COVID fulfills the DSM-5 definition of a traumatic event, and yet as if the pandemic wasn't enough. All these things are happening in real time, significant society, natural, mass tragedies. It's ongoing and it's not over. And this morning at the Conley lecture, you heard Dr. Schumann talk about the Dobbs versus Jackson decision. And I sit there and I just said, yep, as a pediatric otolaryngologist, every child that I vowed to take care of, you know what? Anything that impacted that child's mother's health impacts the child and it impacts the entire family. So how can you not have emotions, right? Tragedies evoke emotions, evoke feelings, and turns out I want to tell you, being a physician does not allow you to opt out of feelings, okay? So, hey, here's a headline. You're sitting there going, please, that's old news. This doesn't surprise any of us. 3 in 10 in healthcare are going to leave the profession. We all know in our hospitals the shortage, right? Shortage of staff. And the nursing shortage gets the most amount of visibility, right? Because it's pretty dire. But I watched for years and I watched firsthand. When it came time to lay people off, there were nurses in educator roles that got cut first. They were not in direct clinical care. And I went back to school last year. I'm doing my master's in medical management, and I have to tell you that I'm very concerned, right? When we talk about financial realities and what's a priority for healthcare in this nation, clinical experience it's really a cost problem, may not be valued as it should be. So these are the things that I reflect on. Now, before you get angry and send people an email to both sections saying, why did you pick the most pessimistic speaker we have ever had? Allow me to invite you to join me, okay? Let's become apocalyptimists, okay? Definitions up there. Somebody who knows it's all going to beep, but still think it's gonna turn out okay. It has to, because it's your life and your career. In the summer of 2020, I remember, my whole life, I've never seen a double rainbow. That summer in Florida, I saw probably at least 8 to 10 of them. Nature is a source of healing for me. It's a source of optimism, okay? So, this is beauty amidst the fear, chaos, and uncertain future when we didn't have a vaccine and we were saving our own lives, our loved ones, the patients, the colleagues as otolaryngologists. Okay, so this next question, as I make a shift to talk about what the heck work-life integration is, would you please answer for me? Is your current work-life reality better than you ever imagined, about what you expected for being in your level of training, or the worst you could ever imagine? Oh, great. So it's about what you expected. So that's good, but I don't know, maybe you set your bar pretty low, right? Okay, I should have asked a clarification. Okay, all right. So I found this recently. There's no such thing as work-life balance. It's all life. The balance has to be within you. So Sadhguru, I may be butchering that word, he's a yogi, a mystic, a teacher, a poet, founder of the Isha Foundation, where the teaching is to create harmony between the body, the mind, and the spirit. And they're helping over 54,000 villages for the rural poor, right, through using yoga and health in the southern state of Tamil Nadu in India. Okay, so this quote really resonated with me. So I'm going to tell you that in 2012 was the first time I gave an instruction course on burnout. And there was probably only 10 people that showed up, okay? And I will give one again tomorrow morning. But over the years, I remember 2012 using the word work-life balance after coming out of horrific high degree of burnout with secret prayer for a cancer diagnosis or something so I can call a timeout. So now I no longer have to hide my skepticism, you see, because that term is out, okay? Now, and I know this graphic is showing a female, but let me say that this applies to everyone. Trying to juggle your life, whether it's physically in the confines and the brick and mortar of a hospital or in another place outside of work, this is a problem and challenge for everyone. So please be the awesome, cool people that you young people are, right? The new term is called work-life integration. Please don't say work-life balance, and that's how we know you're not cool. Work-life integration was coined by the Haas Business School. And what it's about is really, I think the goal is to describe how we actually experience our daily lives. You see, there's just no demarcation for all the roles and domains of your human existence. And I'm confident every one of you, or if not yet, you'll get there. You're in a clinic or OR. How many times have you gotten a text or a call from a loved one, a partner, a spouse, the nanny, the vet, the neighbor, your parents? You're like, dude, I'm in the middle of cases. I can't talk right now. I'm in the middle of clinic. But the moment of engagement and what's required of you, they need all of you to help solve that crisis, and we're not taught how to do that. And then you finally make it home, and you're supposed to be focusing on yourself and rest and recovery and your children and your loved ones. And it turns out you're not even on call, but you're on an email or another phone call about something related to work. I think you get my point, right? The photo on the right is just constantly reminds me what work-life integration looked like. This is a dear friend of mine. I resigned from my role in February, my ex-partner. She's an incredible pediatric otosurgeon, but she's also mother of 2 beautiful kids. And I walk into her office and I see work-life integration right there. But you know the epiphany that occurred to me, especially for women, maybe some men, she has been serving in the unpaid, very costly role of what's called the chief logistic officer for her physician spouse and her family every single day. So I wish I learned early in my career to recognize and create this professional and personal identity of who I really am, and that was more holistic. You see, I just thought, I'm a surgeon, I'm a physician, I've worked so hard to get there. Turns out I would then go on to become a wife and a mother. And yes, I'm a passionate pediatric otolaryngologist focused on education and empowerment. Yes, I'm one who loves children, and I want every interaction to be safe and fun. I've had the privilege to build an incredible division with great colleagues. But I'm also a sister and a daughter to a first-generation immigrant Taiwanese family. And you understand, right? I'm privileged to facilitate and mentor. I've got 6 UCF med students applying to ENT. What a privilege to be in that role. But as I'm just, contributing to ASPO, oh, and I'm a mom to a beautiful dog, by the way. Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna show you, I'm also an aunt. I'm responsible for my health. I'm a committee member for the ENT today. And recently, this summer, we have an interest group for women who want to pursue surgery. And they asked me to speak, and then what was really interesting was this young woman said to me, Dr. Wei, we have a group of women, we think we want to become surgeons, but we don't see a path forward. So I decided in an evening to invite 8 female surgeons of all different subspecialties so that they can understand what that's like. You see, I realize each one of you are doing the same every single day, right? You're influencing the culture of your workplace. You are supporting each other. You're creating new knowledge for otolaryngology. You're serving as role models for people who are going to come after you. You're doing all this while being the type of physician and surgeons that society and others depend on, right? But it comes with a cost, and it's costing you. So I'm going to plug here, Backtable ENT. Do all of you know this podcast? It is really awesome. And if you don't, I encourage you to listen to it. Episode 62 is really great. It's about the dual physician household, but it also applies, in my opinion, even if your significant other is not in medicine. So that's Dr. Bill Collins, chair of UF. So this one I would like you to answer. I'm so curious for this group. How many of you are in a relationship with another physician? Okay, almost a third. Does that surprise you? Probably yes, no? Okay. So I shift a little bit. I'm going to bring this up because, you see, this is a New York Times article from December 2019, so pre-pandemic, that despite the fact that American medical schools have reached gender parity, women make up only 23% of surgeons. So a Harvard Medical School survey found majority of students, men and women, that choose to pursue surgical career, well, they all said that they receive verbal discouragement. But 72% of the female students perceived it as gender-based because they're told you're not going to be able to balance career with your maternal responsibilities. So in 2018, a JAMA study surveyed pregnant surgical residents, and they found that 39% considered dropping out altogether. 30% said they would advise all female med students to please choose a non-surgical career. Right? And I asked myself, what is that data? What would it be today through the last 3 years of pandemic turned endemic? And then I read a study that said they estimate it will take 120 years to reach gender parity in surgery. Oh, that's disheartening, right? But that makes sense because, well, for a woman, the prime childbearing years are mid-20s to early 30s, and I don't think that was going to change anytime soon in human biology. For me, I had my daughter, I think, a couple of weeks before I turned 36 after suffering from infertility. So in this current world we live in, where we embrace equity, diversity, inclusion, the reason I'm talking about the disparity that especially is relevant for your generation, right, is we have to talk about these gender differences. When I saw the studies and I saw that, in general, women spend 8.5 hours more per week on parenting domestic activities, I'm like, thank you for research that validates how I feel in my existence. I'm here to tell you that I have so many incredible female colleagues and male colleagues in my career, and I do understand that women experience less career satisfaction because the system is blind to gender, right? And there's no flexibility to be had. I intentionally created flexibility for my own team, which all got taken away because of the pandemic impact of finances, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. This next question is personal. Please only answer if you feel comfortable. Recently, during a session at the ASPO summer meeting, I brought a psychologist, keynote speaker, who led a discussion on how we process trauma. And it was gut-wrenching for me. How many female colleagues raised their hand in public and talked about dealing with infertility or miscarriage, and including the fact that those who had it during residency felt the need to hide it. Okay, so if you look at personally, it's 10%, and then 8% in spouse. That's almost 1 in 5 in this audience. I'm sorry for the pain that you've endured because I know what that is. This JAMA article published last year highlights the increased incidence of infertility and pregnancy complications in U.S. female surgeons. I won't read all the statistics. I do appreciate, and I want you to know, that our male colleagues go through this as well. But not giving permission to bring this to the table is really not okay, because you, the YPS and the SRF members, you and every one of them sitting next to you, your colleagues, you are most at risk because of your youth and where you are biologically. So I am going to submit a panel for our COSM ASPO meeting next year, where I'm bringing experts, because I not only want to give permission and bring this forward, because I'm finding out, who would have known there's reproductive GYN immunologists. I didn't even know that existed. My goal is, if we do this right, we help people achieve successful pregnancy. So we decrease the trauma you endure as you're already committed to becoming the best otolaryngologist and live the career that you have worked so hard for. Okay, I'm going to shift to wellness and well-being. People use these two terms interchangeably, and I'm here to tell you they're not the same. Wellness is defined as optimal state of health. So for an individual or a group of people, so you can achieve your potential in every role, as a community, as an individual, etc. Well-being is the experience of being happy, healthy, prosperous. So what's been shown is, to experience high degree of well-being, you have to be connected, and that's why I'm so grateful we're here, right? You have to have good mental health, life satisfaction, but if you ask me specifically for physicians, we need protection against abuse, neglect, but for physicians, we need autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I said to myself, gosh, we're in medicine. We have purpose. Nobody needs to give us that. Mastery is the years we have spent in residency and fellowship training. What is being eroded very quickly is autonomy, right? So not feeling valued, respected, not having autonomy or significant impact to that. These were key factors for why I needed a timeout and resign from the roles and leadership and the big salary and everything I've spent 25 years working for. Because nature is healing, I'm just going to share an imagery with you. That's my best friend. He's 81. We've been friends for 8 years. Every Saturday we walk, and I'm in Florida. We go see the sunrise with our dogs. He's the only one who will brave the heat and alligators to go kayaking with me. Over the years, he loves hearing the human stories about medicine, and he taught me all about wildlife in Florida. So this is a very special thing that has been healing for me as well, and I'm grateful for that friendship. I'm here to talk to you today so that hopefully your thermostat is being checked and maintained, that it won't get broken 20 years from now, right? Dr. Paolini is a psychologist with over 30 years who only treats physicians, and she taught me my thermostat was broken, right? Our thermostat is broken, and I understand now why. I used to just blame it on the way culturally I was brought up, where we're all external achievement based and lack of affection or expressed affection. But now I understand it's more than that. I have endured so much to prove that not only as a female, but an Asian female, I am every bit as good and worthy of being trained for that coveted spot in otolaryngology, right? 69% last year match rate. But now I get it. I tried even harder all the time. You know why? Because for the first time, I'm going to say out loud, I experienced misogyny in medical school. When I decided to apply to otolaryngology, I was the only female out of 7 in my class. I also was the only one that didn't make AOA, missed by a bit, Many people told me I was ridiculous, I would never match. Someone in my class forged a letter and my signature, sent it to the Mayo Clinic, forfeiting my spot. You don't think that was traumatic? Well, all these traumatic experiences, they're the reason I became the surgeon who never called out sick, who did cases with the IV in her arm, who denied pain and keep going, right? At the expense of not just my health, the quality of the relationship of my marriage. And the worst thing I will admit to you is choosing other people's children because they were my patients over my own miracle pregnancy child who was sick. And she was 4 years old the day she said, "Mommy, I want you to stay home with me." I said, "Honey, I'd have to cancel 30 kids who are waiting for me. My patients are," she says, "Mommy, I'm a child, I'm sick." And I went to work, cried, but I went. But if I had to redo that moment again, it would be a very different decision. Okay. I don't know about your inner voice. I'm learning how to tell my inner voice to shut up. You know what my inner voice says to me? I don't have a choice. I'm the bread earner. I'm gonna be okay. I need to be tough. I need to be tougher. I can do this. So let's talk about the new hot word, buzzword, all over literature. If you want to talk about or read about well-being, it's resilience, right? So resilience is what psychologists define as how you adapt to adversity and what we do when we're faced with difficult situations. So I have great news for all of you. This is one of my favorite papers of all time by Dr. Shanafel, who is the academic guru on anything related to burnout for physicians, right? The paper is Resilience and Burnout Among Physicians and the General U.S. Working Population. The great news is this: physicians are the most resilient compared to all other sections of the U.S. workforce. You see all the subspecialty score there. I know you're looking for otolaryngology. We're kind of in the middle, okay? We're pretty resilient. It's very minor differences. You know what was eye-opening about this paper? 1/3 of those who scored the highest on resilience score were also the most burned out. The two are not mutually exclusive, so you can be burned out and resilient. I'm going to refrain from sharing all these academic models. Yes, I'm grateful I completed the Stanford Physician Director's course on well-being, and I did the Mount Sinai GME Wellbeing Initiative course as well. I decided when we're talking about how to experience well-being, just look at what resilience looks and feels like through the pandemic, right? That is my incredible team. We learned to deliver therapy services for the cochlear implant kids, even with the mask, even through telehealth. We create, right, the capper, the papper. You guys remember all that, right? And then I'm really proud you see us there celebrating Halloween despite masking and all that. And also I was grateful with our medical staff, Health and Wellness Committee raised all this money for the environmental services people, the cafeteria, security, the unsung heroes of the pandemic. These are 3 books that have really been instrumental for growing my resilience. The first one is Permission to Feel, learning how to identify, label, connect, and regulate your emotions. The second is on self-compassion. Self-compassion, you know, talk to yourself the way you talk to your colleague after a near miss or a sentinel event. But the way we talk to ourselves is definitely not as nice. I know that. So, finally, Together is written by our current Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. I love this book because he really outlined and showed compelling evidence, that's evidence-based, why so many chronic illnesses, addiction, obesity, mental health, they're rooted in loneliness. And so not feeling lonely, coming together, this is the antidote to the human condition that medicine and surgery will not fix. So, I believe each of us are a light, and I hope that I've ignited your light by sharing my professional and life journey and being your mirror. I wish you the most incredible health afforded to you by youth, and I wish you immense self-love, self-compassion, and self-trust as you enjoy your career. I think it's really important that we embrace and celebrate ourselves as human beings, not just because we're surgeons and doctors, but because together We are an incredible group of people who can use our heart, our minds, and our hands, and every day we bear witness and we're radically present for people who are suffering. We heal people, we can save lives, we're the airway experts. But truly, I ask that we do all of this with the utmost compassion, not just for our patients, for ourselves first. So I'm going to play a song for you. And thank you. Rob, we can cut that. Okay, well, I'm sorry I'm over time, kept you from your beer and our celebration and connection. Thank you so much for this time to be with you. I look forward to connecting with you and answering any questions. Thank you.